Namaste everybody. Welcome to the program of UGC EPGP Pathshala of Postgraduate Studies for Japanese. I am Anita Khanna from Jawaharlal Nehru University, and I teach Japanese language and literature in the Department of Japanese Studies called CJS, the Center for Japanese Studies. The title of this paper is An Introduction to Japanese Literature in English. I must share with you that whenever I teach this course of ancient Japanese literature, I pose a question to the students: which work of Japanese literature would you like to study first? And 7 out of 10 times the answer is Genji Monogatari, the tale of Genji. It's a long work. Of course, it has the reputation of being the first fiction of the world literature, what to speak of Japanese literature. And it's written by a woman writer, Murasaki Shikibu, a court lady of Heian period. So there are many questions to be answered before I venture into the work itself, I have always felt. Because Heian Society was a very special and a privileged society where the foremost condition for a good administration in any country is the maintenance of peace. As a result of this, there was a wide scope for the grooming of literary traditions and cultural developments. The word Heian comprises of 2 kanji characters. The first, He wa. He wa means peace. So, a part of peace, and wa is harmony, peace and harmony. The objective of this module, named Heian Society, is to introduce the environment which groomed the lady authors and gave them a chance to scribe, which resulted in this excellent work of fiction. So, this lecture I have divided into 2 parts. In the first part, I will introduce the difference in the social conditions. It is a well-known fact that in 894, the scholar of Chinese literature, Sugawara no Michizane, and very close to the emperor, declared that we don't have anything more to learn from China, and on his single advice this long tradition was closed of sending official missions to China. Japan looked inwardly and assimilated those traditions they had gathered till then and innovated them with excellence, especially in the field of literature, like Genji Monogatari, Waka anthologies starting with Kokin Waka Sho, the Heian diaries, which culminated into the fiction of I novels. So the first part of this lesson is based on the difference in society before the closure of the Kentoshi and after that. In other words, it will be compared that what Japan imbibed from the cultural traditions of China and how it assimilated all those after they closed the official embassies to China. First part is divided in three subtitles. The first one is script, the second one is religious thought, and the third part is the creative works. In the second part, I will discuss about the social strata of Heian period. Again, it's divided into three parts to begin with, whereby the aristocracy comes on top, next comes the bureaucracy, and it is followed by common man. We must know that the third strata, which is a common man, did not have any role to play in this literary development. The major players were the political system of regency and the second strata of bureaucracy. Aristocracy was, as we know, was on the top, and next came the bureaucracy, and most of the women writers of this period belong to this class of bureaucrat. Bureaucrats were of again three categories: the top bureaucrats, the middle ranking bureaucrats, and the lower bureaucrats. It was mostly the daughters of the middle and the low ranking bureaucrats who excelled in literary activity, who were groomed to compose poetry and were the masters of prose. They were poets and writers, and we don't have a single name of Murasaki Shikibu only, but we also have the works like the Pillow Book, the Women Poets. How this was made possible? So we will discuss it under the subtitle of script. As we all know that by this time Japanese had a script of their own in the name of vernacular Kana script. Prior to it, most of the official work was done using the Kambun, the Chinese script, and even the literary works were written. The first work in Nara period is Kojiki, followed by Nihon Shoki, were all compilations. So was the Fudoki and the Manyoshu, the biggest poetry collection. Parallel development of native Japanese script gave an impetus to the literary writings. The Kambun scholars were not happy with this development, and so in order to emphasize their scholarship, they called the Kambun writings as Otokode and the Kana writings as Onnade, a man's hand and woman's hand. In the absence of any political status of Heian women, their writings in Kana continued and resulted in the excellent work. So, under the subtopic of script, I have mentioned the rise in the status of women, as they were called Nyobo or the court ladies, in terms of learning, activity, literary writing, composing, poetry, even if they were not given any political position. Now, the second subtitle is Buddhism. The role Buddhism played in the development of society as well as Japanese traditions is widespread. We can very well imagine that in the year 752, a colossal image of Buddha was erected by Emperor Shomu in the temple Todaichi in Nara. It was not only an architectural masterpiece, but it also facilitated the development of cultural activity. Buddhism, which was introduced officially in 552 through Korea, by now had found a firm standing and was almost like a state religion. It had become closely associated with the affairs of the state, especially for the protection and prosperity of the nation and its people. And for this, regular rites and prayers were performed, as we know the term Kajikito. So, between these 2 centuries, since the advent of Buddhism in Japan, a number of monks and religious teachers who excelled and who had mastered the philosophies and other aspects of Buddhism emerged, and they founded the Buddhist sects of Japan. And it is known that Saicho and Kukai were both very close to the emperors and had prayed several times for the protection, speedy recovery, and successfully for rains also in the times of drought. The third subtitle we are going to cover is creative works. The first work of Japanese literature, Kojiki, was a compilation which was written on the initiative of Emperor Temmu. Similarly, the other works were all compilations which were commissioned by the court, and even the famous Manyoshu is a compilation of Japanese poetry. In other words, the point I want to emphasize is that poetic or prose writings were not created on the initiative of the individuals, but it was a collective effort. To sum up, we can say that the social condition of the time are reflected in the literature of that period, and it gives insights into the life of aristocracy, both private as well as public. It also throws light on the social realities like the moral standards of society, the status of women, etc., and also the blooming of literature which was preoccupied with fiction, unlike the Nara period. Also, we can say that the scale of literary activity by women excelled in scale as well as quality that of the men, despite being a part of court circles. They were merely silent observers, as it was a society predominated by men, and women had no political status in spite of their access to the power circles. Japanese poetry is highly acclaimed for its poetic quality, but no woman was assigned the task of compilation of the officially commissioned Waka anthologies. So, it was the instrument of kana they used for literary compositions, although inviting the scorn of the writers of the times, but have resulted in the excellent works of Japanese literature.